Hello, trumpet players. This is video number 2 in our trumpet listening series. In this video, we're going to be talking about who should you listen to. So I have a big stack of CDs here on the little bench. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But first, let's take a step back and state the obvious. Who you should listen to in the context of you becoming a better musician should be the best of the best that you can listen to. And that's easy for you now because you have access to almost every recording that ever existed. When I was in school, we didn't have that. I remember going to the record store and there were maybe 2 trumpet albums in there. Usually I would already have them. It was probably Maurice Andre or Wynton Marsalis. They're just... You had to go to a big city somewhere to find a store that might have some of that stuff, and even then, it was limited. Today, the sky's the limit. So who should you listen to? You should listen to the best of the best. And that means, now it should be the best of the best according to the style you're trying to learn. If you're trying to be a jazz improviser, you want to listen to Freddie Hubbard, Lee Morgan, Clifford Brown, Miles Davis. And you should also be listening to the older guys like, what's his name? The guy after Louis Armstrong. I keep forgetting his name. So we want Louis Armstrong. We want Roy Eldridge, that's the guy I was trying to think of. Roy Eldridge. Dizzy Gillespie. If you're trying to be a jazz improviser, these are the ones you should listen to. There are some of the modern ones, like Wynton Marsalis. That's a good choice. I actually, for the listening, don't get me wrong, I like Wynton's music, what he's doing today. Don't get me wrong, but for the students, I want them to hear his earlier albums. My favorite Wynton Marsalis album is still to this day Black Codes. I feel, well, I'm not going to go into that, but I recommend Black Codes to my students quite often. So yes, we want players who are successful at this. We don't want, because see on YouTube, you can just type jazz trumpet and you might even get me. I don't want you listening to me. I've said this in other videos. I don't want you listening to me. There's one exception. We're going to talk about that today. There's one exception to what I'm talking about. But generally speaking, I don't want you to listen to me. I want you to listen to the greats. And it's easy to get stuck listening to people who are not on, especially on YouTube, because YouTube doesn't know any different. The algorithm doesn't know any different. YouTube is not designed to put in front of you the best of the best of the best. Now, if you're a classical player, listen to the top classical players. I encourage you to listen to the orchestras. I encourage you to hear as much of the individual trumpet players as intimately as possible. We're going to talk about that in the next video. I encourage you to listen to brass ensembles, whether or not you are going to be a brass ensemble player or just an orchestral player. The brass ensemble stuff gives you a more intimate appreciation of the classical players, because there isn't all this other distraction going on. Some people might be offended by that. But you get what I mean, right? If there's so much going on stage, you're not hearing so much just the trumpet player. Now, let me stress again that this is for the students who are just now getting started with listening. Okay, this is mainly for the students, you know, after you've saturated your ears with Maurice Andre and those guys, the guys who are traditionally the best, it's time now to go off and look for these others. You know, I have a page that's now become the most popular page on my website. It's a page where you can go and you can click and go to their YouTube page. It's a classical trumpet players. I mean to do the jazz one like it. I just haven't got to it yet. But there's a page where you can go to the classical stuff. It's all in alphabetical order. Maurice Andre at the top, and then all the way down a few dozen, I think, top classical trumpet players. That's who you want to listen to if you're going to be a classical trumpet player. Don't be listening to Joe Schmo that comes up on your YouTube search. I mean, it's not that you're not allowed to, but that doesn't count towards your 10 hours a week. If you listen to some Joe Schmo on YouTube, that doesn't count towards your 10 hours. So it's not that you're not allowed to. You should enjoy listening to anybody you want to listen to. But there are certain types of listening you need to do, and that's what we're talking about here. Who should you listen to? There are certain types of musicians you should listen to instead of those guys. Now, that's the easy answer, right? Because just about anyone's going to tell you that. This is not new information. One thing that I do offer that's a little bit different from what other people might offer is that I also believe that you should be listening to your local musicians. And that's what I have here. I'm going to go through. So, you know what's funny is most of the people on these CDs don't know that I have the CD. Most of the people on these CDs don't even know that I listen to them. I just listened to this one last week. It's a gorgeous CD. This guy's name is John Nevitt. All of the guys on the album are friends of mine. I don't know John Nevitt personally. I think, now I've played in his big band. I'm not on this album. Of these that are here, I'm not on any of these. Those are still up on the shelf, okay? I've played gigs with this band, John Nevitt. I don't think he's in Houston anymore. I might be wrong, but I get the impression he's not. But the guys on this band are all buddies of mine. These are local musicians. The trumpet section is basically guys I work with all the time. This one, Larry Slazak. Larry Slazak was a huge influence on my life. A huge influence on my life. He just passed away, I guess, about a year or two ago. Once again, these are all buddies of mine. I listen to this album often. Here's somebody who's kind of halfway famous, I think. Rick Porter. Rick Porter was a drummer for, I think, Lee Morgan and Kenny Durham. Local guy. I listened to his CD. This, also from El Paso. This is a jazz group from El Paso. I listened to this album. These are guys I went to college with. Mike Wheeler. I just played with Mike Wheeler 2 days ago on a big band rehearsal. He's a guitar player, excellent guitar player. The guys on the recording are friends of mine. Kelly Lancaster. Now this is more of a bluegrass kind of thing, but I played on gigs with him. Why do you think I'm listening to all this stuff? Here's a nice one. Two of them by the same musician. Oh. Sebastian Whittaker. Excellent, excellent drummer. He's blind, or he was blind. He's passed away. And some of the guys are not local. Some guys are local, but you wouldn't have known that. Like Shirley Carroll is on this album, and some people don't realize that Shirley Carroll's from Houston. This one's got Dennis Dotson on it. This one has Barry Lee Hall, I think. Yeah, Barry Lee Hall on trumpet. Woody Witt is a friend of mine. Another Woody Witt. Norma Centeno. I played with this band. I'm not on the CD, but I played with this band for, I want to say, about 10 years. Noteworks is another El Paso band with my good friend Mike Middleton on it. Carol Morgan, a good friend of mine. She's now in, has Joel Fram on tenor sax. She's now in New York. I think she recorded it in New York. The Testosterone. Once again, local guys, friends of mine. Now, a lot of these, the guys have passed away. The guitar player for this has passed away. Stonebridge Praise Band. That was given to me by a local person. Okay? Jackie Sutton. Now, I'm on one of Jackie Sutton's CDs, but I'm not on this one. I listened to this one. She does half bluegrass, half jazz. Karma Johnson Orchestra. This one also has Barry Lee Hall on it. The Chuck Nolan Big Band. I think I got this after Chuck passed away. My good friend Daryl Bear. Now the Bop Meisters. I bought this CD a long, long time ago. Once again, local guys. David Caceres, local guy. Arnett Cobb and Dizzy Gillespie with a local Houston band. Why am I listening to this? The Core Trio, an avant-garde group. Now this one is not local, but I have a connection here. This is the Ganubi. Ganubi is a town in South Africa. Ganubi Primary School Marimba Band. Why am I listening to this? Shelley Berg and his father. Right? John Adams, who teaches bass, I think, at North Texas, but a local Houston band. Waltz of Hope. All local players. This was I think this was a benefit CD for Dave Nichols. Now this one I bought because it's got a local trumpet player, Dennis Dotson. It's also got Ellis Marcellus on it. Return to Wide Open Spaces. It was recorded in Dallas, but there's a Houston connection there. The Ricky Bierce, I played with his band for a long time. Warren Sneed, who teaches at HSPVA. Max Dyer, who was a local cellist until he moved. Why am I listening to all this stuff? You have heard me many times say that it's not just about getting better on your horn, it's about being connected to the culture. Here's Mark Towns, flamenco jazz type stuff. Another Mike Wheeler. Marco Polo is a trumpet player in El Paso. Now the reason I have Walter Smith's albums is because he was my student. And there's a Houston connection here too. Paul Tyneman and Aaron Lincoln. I've got two of those. These guys don't know that I have their albums and they don't know that I'm listening to them. Another El Paso band. This has my jazz teacher in it. And my jazz mentor, Ricky Malachi. Another Mark Polo. And then Robert Glasper, Jazz Radio. I listen to jazz radio. Oh, I'm sorry, black radio. Now, let me put these on the floor so I can talk. I actually actively listen. I don't mean actively in the context what we've been saying, but I make myself passively listen to these albums. I have a thumb drive that I stick in my vehicle, for example. Oh, I'm not going to tell you that. That's the next video. Let me not get ahead of myself. But yes, I listen to all of these. I also listen to all the greats too. That's not all of what I have. Most of it's in the attic. Because these are the ones that I actually lend out to my students. But the idea is that you're not just listening to the greats of the greats of the greats, you should also listen to your local musicians. And there's two reasons for that. Yes, we want to be part of the culture, I already said that. But if you're not also going to be part of the economy, that's also kind of offensive too. You want people to pay you, but you don't want to support them. Most of these albums that I just showed you are albums that I paid money for. There are exceptions like the Carol Morgan CD. Oh no, I take it back. I actually did. No, I think what it was, I went to see her at Cezanne. I paid the cover, and she said, "Here's a CD." So it's not. So yes, I didn't pay for that one. That's what I meant. And yes, sometimes one of the ones that's not on here because he didn't give me a CD, he gave me a cassette tape, was Harry Sheppard. I wore that cassette tape out. I wore it out. And then I bought 2 CDs. I don't know why they're not here. I bought 2 CDs of Harry Sheppard playing with these guys from New Orleans, right? And local guys too. So yes, I want to support these guys as much as I can. I'm not wealthy or anything like that, but I will go to their shows when I can, and I will buy their recordings when I can, and I'll go and watch them on YouTube and click like and stuff like that. I'm trying to help them too. And not necessarily so I can be helped. None of these guys know that I do this because I don't tell them. And the likelihood of them watching this video is slim, right? So they're not going to know. You know what? The thing is, I have so many albums with Dennis Dotson on them, and I bought them because Dennis is on them. Right? Because Dennis is a friend of mine. Dennis is one of the most influential trumpet players in my life. How did he become one of the most influential? Because I listened to him not just on the gig. We're going to talk about that too. There's 8 of these listening videos. Can you believe that? So the point I want to make here is you should listen to your friends. You should listen to your local top players. Be part of the community. Be part of the economy. If you're not buying CDs, they're not going to either. Okay? Now, there's one. I told you there was an exception that I don't want you listening to me. I do think that my students, I think it's different with the videos. Even though I do consider you guys my students, I wouldn't recommend that you listen to my music in that context. Listen to my music as part of your pleasure if you like it, but that should not be part of this. But if you're taking lessons from me, you should know how I play. So you should listen to enough of my recordings to know what you're getting into. Reputation is a good thing, and yes, I've got a good reputation as a teacher. But reputation in and of itself is not enough. It's just not enough. What if you want to be a schmaltzy player and I'm not a schmaltzy teacher? How are you going to know that? And maybe I can help you become a schmaltzy player, but that's not what I do, and wouldn't it be better if you take lessons with a schmaltzy player? Does that make sense? So you should be listening, and it's not just me. You should be listening to the recordings of the person that you're taking lessons from. Not so much as you do the rest of it. Not so much as you listen to Clifford Brown, and if you're a classical guy, Maurice Andre and those guys, and Håkan Hardenberger and all of those guys, right? Wynton Marsalis. Shouldn't be listening to your teacher that much, but you should be listening to your teacher. You should not be unfamiliar with how your teacher sounds. You see what I'm saying? And if your teacher doesn't have any recording, go to their concerts. And by the way, that's something that we haven't talked about yet. That's for video number 3. Okay? Video number 3. And we're going to also talk about each one of the different venue types. We're going to have videos for each of those. Okay? Wow, I thought this one was going to be short. And I got carried away. You know, I also have this set of CDs. I remember joking with my mom, because my mom is an amateur singer. She's been an amateur singer my whole life. Church stuff, right? And she's on 5 different CDs with the East Valley Chorale in Phoenix. And I listen to those too. So, because why would you not listen to your own family's recordings? You know? Why would you not do that? So yes, I agree with everybody that says listen to the best of the best of the best. But that can't be all of it. That becomes too academic. You also want to do listening that connects you to your local culture. And you know, this stack of CDs that I have, this isn't even all of it. I told you there's Harry Sheppard, and there's all these other, there's albums I bought from El Paso people. The El Paso people most definitely don't know that I'm listening to their music. I'm absolutely certain they don't think that I'm listening to their music. They don't know that I'm listening. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. You become part of the economy. You become part of the culture. You become part of the community. Every time you buy one of their albums, every time you buy the MP3s, every time you click like on their videos, every time you watch their video again, it helps support them. And by supporting them, you're helping to create a community of musicians that might later support you. And I don't mean necessarily support you financially. But if there's a community that you're supporting them when they need it, they might be there for you when you need it. That's called being part of the community. Okay, so it shouldn't just be Clifford Brown that you listen to. If you're a trumpet player in Houston and you're not listening to Dennis Dotson recordings, how dare you? And I don't mean that sarcastically. How dare you? You should be listening to Dennis Dotson's recordings. You should be listening to Barry Lee Hall's recordings. If you live in El Paso and you don't have the Gerald Hunter recording, you need to find the Gerald Hunter recording and listen to it. If you live in El Paso and you don't have Kurt Warren's recordings, you need to get Kurt Warren's recordings and listen to them. Same thing with Billy Towns. Get Billy Towns' recordings and listen to them. All right? I hope that makes sense. This video is about who should you listen to. You should listen to the greats. You should listen to your local musicians, and you should listen to your teacher. Know what your teacher sounds like. Okay? All right, that's what I've got for you on this one. God bless you again. And we'll see you on the next video. Thank you.